everybody. Welcome to the soft and fuzzy talk on positivism in blogging. This is going to be kind of an open discussion where we just talk about things. We've got some interesting questions that we've talked about among us and that we can open up to you. First, we're going to introduce ourselves. Krista's going to start, and she's got a bio right here as well, so make sure that you pick that up and read it because she's awesome. Pick it up on your way out.
Thanks. So yeah, I'm Krista, and my blog is vegginoutwithkrista.blogspot.com. I'm also a wellsphere.com health blogger as well. And I guess we're just, I've been blogging now for, I started in May actually of last year. So a little over a year now, and I think that my blog is rather positive. So, so obviously other people do, that's why I'm here. So I'm just really happy to be here and open to hopefully answering questions.
And my name is Leigh-Chantelle. I run a website called Viva.net. I'm from Australia. And blogging is just one part of my website. So it's just a way that I utilize people to get people to my website via the blog. And I've been doing the website since 2005, and it started to promote my recipe calendars. I released 3 recipe calendars, and the Viva.net has grown since then. So we have like vegan mentors. I do lots of interviews with people and how-to videos, and there's articles, recipes, heaps of stuff there. And I always focus on the positive aspects of everything because it just helps me get through my life, really. And always look on the bright side of life. And I work in social media marketing, so I do YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Work for clients, and one of the best things for marketing and promoting anything is to focus on the positive aspects of things. So my whole focus with veganism is to focus on the positives, therefore people can promote it in a better way, in a better light, so that instead of saying things we're against and the things we don't like, you're saying this is what we believe in, this is what we support, these are the foods that we love to eat, these are the things that are great, and I think that helps to promote what we need to promote.
Hey everyone, I'm Jenna. I write a blog called Choosing Raw. I'm also a pre-med student. Let's see, I write about vegan and raw food, and I was a little bit surprised when I ended up on this panel because my blog can often be really snarky and very tough-minded, I think. So I think one of the things we'll talk today about is sort of what positive means, and does that always mean upbeat all the time. But I do always try to inspire and excite people, and I always try to make people feel empowered. That's probably the thing that matters most to me when I write, whether that's empowered about nutrition or health or body image, pretty much in any way. I just want people to leave my blog feeling stronger and more sure of who they are. So that's me.
I'm Janessa. I have a blog called EpicuriousVegan.com. I've been blogging for about 3 years, and I don't know if I blog necessarily too much about positive things. I mean, they're positive things because they're just what I do in my life. So it's bike riding and drinking sangria and making hummus, things like that, which I think is all really positive. So I'm excited to talk about this. I think we're going to have a few different things to talk about with, is positive always upbeat, like you said? Does it mean that you're a pushover? If you're positive, how to kind of positivism in blogging as well as in your life.
And how to deal with negativity,
yeah,
which we all do.
Yeah. So, welcome, I guess. And with that, I guess what we want to open up with is what's the essence of being positive.
Like, what do you guys think positive means? Someone.
Well, I will admit that I'm not really sure what positive means, and so that's something I would like to hear from anyone or everyone, because I guess in my mind, I think maybe positive is, like little Care Bears floating around, and maybe not pushover, but maybe just like coming off as false maybe sometimes, and it might be because I'm not always known for being the most positive person, because I do complain a lot, and I'm working on it, but I'm not one of these super sweet type of people, even though inside I feel loving, but I don't come across that way. So So then for me, it's hard to visualize what is positive that's authentic. So I'm interested in understanding that or having someone define that. You know?
That's really
Especially as it applies to vegan blogging.
Yeah.
To me, it seems like that word empowering that you brought up is really important. Because if you're empowering other people but you're being authentic, I think you can do that in a way that's not putting people down.
Yeah.
I think of, kind of when I think about positive blogs, even if there's lots to complain about, it's about maybe making the complaint and then coming up with ideas for like solutions, or if not that, then what, rather than just the complaint. It's kind of like a next step.
Yeah.
And I think you also have to think about what are the similarities and what is synonymous with being positive. Because like we said, we talk about people being in, you know, you're empowering people or being inspiring. Those things are, I believe, synonymous with being positive. So no, it doesn't always have to be that you're being super, you know, syrupy sweet. But if you are projecting something that can inspire somebody or empower somebody, that in itself is positive. So I think that if you write from that standpoint, that's what's going to come through. And if that's truly who you are, then it's always going to be authentic. It's when you're not being yourself is when it's not.
Positivism to me in my life is that I don't look at other people and think that they're coming from a bad place because they're malicious. I think that we all do the very best we can do, and we're all on our own path, and it's kind of cheesy, it can be, but we're all doing the best we can do. And if we understand that when we have interactions, whether it's on blogs or in life, then we can kind of understand that, you know, like they're just having maybe a bad day, or they don't know how to express their confusion or whatever, and then deal with it from there. And we don't have to internalize their anger or their judgments, as long as we can remain strong, but we can still get that positivism back out by understanding that we're all doing the best that we can do. And that keeps me from getting really negative, you know? Because I'm like, it's okay, they're trying, you know? We're all trying. So that's for you, Jennifer, like, for me being a positive person, I am, because I like to see the good in things and the good in people.
I actually think that was a really interesting point about like coming up with solutions, because I think specifically with regards to blogging, I think we all know that in this day and age, blogs are so ubiquitous, and a lot of people use them as outlets to vent frustration 24/7. Like, and you know, not necessarily food blogs or vegan blogs, but a lot of blogs out there are basically people's own little sounding board for being pissed off or angry at the world or depressed about themselves. I think one really important part of being a blogger who has a positive message is to show that it's perfectly normal to experience frustration and discontent and anger sometimes, or disappointment, but also to be able to work through that on your blog and then move forward in a way that's not despairing or hopeless. So like this year when I went back to school, I just found myself constantly frustrated with how difficult it was, and there were a lot of nights where I came home and vented about it on my blog, which I had never done before. My blog until that point had always been like, here's a kale recipe. And suddenly I was like writing about my own frustrations. But I realized that in some ways I was using that to move past them. And by the time I was done with the blog post, my voice was more upbeat, my writing voice was more upbeat, and I felt a lot better. And my hope was that people could sort of see that it's human to feel shitty sometimes, and it's also like a really important thing to be able to move past that and just not let it drag you down too much.
I think also with the positivity as well, it's encouraging whatever you can do well and find out what your passion is, what you're really skilled at, and what you want to express to people as well. Instead of, there's a lot of people that say, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, or like with activism, no, you can only do these sort of things, don't do this, don't go outside of this box. But I think more people need to be empowered and feel confident to utilize whatever their skills are to promote veganism as best we can.
What you said, Jenna, for me as a reader who's not a person that has a popular blog, I actually like something like that, what you mentioned, because sometimes like I said, as a reader and someone who's very disconnected from the community physically because I am in an isolated place, that to me makes me feel like, you know, you're all real people, because sometimes I get caught in the trap where maybe somebody else has this problem, where I'm reading blogs and it's just, everything is so wonderful and perfect all the time, and I'm like, really? Is it really? Am I doing something horribly wrong? And then I think, well, do they just write posts when they are having a good day? And it doesn't seem as believable to me, but it might just be because I am more of a kind of cranky person, but I mean, I know as a reader I appreciate
I think that's a good
sometimes
point.
when there's something that's not positive, not because I want people to suffer, I don't mean like that, but just makes it seem more authentic to me.
Some people only want to portray the good when there's obviously good and bad going on.
And I think
everybody's
that's
life.
that's a legitimate stance. Like when you start a blog, you decide what will the sensibility of this blog be. And like when I started mine, I remember I was like, I'm gonna keep it professional. It's really like I'm not gonna be one of those people who writes about her personal life. That's like, I just thought that was like really navel gazing, and I was never ever gonna do it. And it was always gonna be like a really placid, upbeat tone. And like that just wasn't me at all. And so my blog changed. I think it's totally legitimate to say that your blog is going to have a professional purpose, or it's only going to showcase sort of only culinary stuff. Like a lot of food blogs really do just focus on food and they don't go into the personal stuff. But it's also okay as a reader to decide those blogs don't really resonate with me at all because it doesn't resemble my life. And so I'm just going to read blogs that do resonate and that maybe aren't quite as pristine. And so I think it's all about like there's no right or wrong way, but as a reader, it's totally fine to see blogs that you don't feel you relate to and just kind of not make those the blogs you read most of the time.
That's
cool.
I agree with that. I think it really does come down to what is important to you and what you, like Jenna was saying, what resonates with you, because there is a place. There might be people that write from that are what we call maybe the sugary sweet type blogs. That really might be who they are. I mean, who are we to say that it's not? So I think if that's the case, then it's like, okay, well then maybe that's just not for me. So I think there's a place for everybody. It's just depending on, and then you just make a choice what place you want to be in with them or with someone else.
And then also from a marketing perspective, who your target audience is, who you want to get to, go through and see how many people read specific blogs that you write, the comments that you get for specific topics as well, and see what they want from you.
Speaking of comments, I think that's an interesting one to segue into because I think a lot of people, even if we don't get a lot of comments on our blogs, we read other blogs that do, and we can see how comments can kind of balloon up into negativity. So I think how to deal with that, or your perspective of seeing negative comments on that, is an interesting one to talk about too.
Well, I don't have comments on my blog because I don't have the time to put up with other people's opinions, to be honest. I have a lot of time and energy that goes into my blogs that to add more time onto things as well. And I have 3 different websites. I've got Leigh-Chantelle.com, I've got greenearthday.net and VivaLaVegan.net. Plus I have YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter things for all those, plus MySpace for a few of them. So, and I also, because I do social media marketing, I have other clients that I have all those things for. So for me, that just adds heaps more time onto my day and my week. And that's what I say to a lot of new bloggers, is just disable the comment section, because that's an easy way to not have to deal with a lot of negativity. But but then keeping that in mind, I do get probably more emails because of that. So, and if I get emails from people that are against specific stuff, because I promote the environmental aspects of veganism, and a few people disagree with that. And so I get quite a few emails about that. Like, I'm talking huge emails about all the ways I should be doing things differently. And I don't have time to respond line by line to each of the statements, so I normally just like a thank you for your email sort of thing, and maybe write a few specific things that they've said, but I don't really get too much into it other than that. But that's my choice.
And I don't get comments, so I don't really have that problem. No, every once in a while I do. I mean, I encourage them. I mean, I don't have mine turned off or anything because I am an interactive person. I really like talking to people. I really like hearing people's stories. I want to know what you're thinking. So if you read my blog, please comment, because I want to talk to you. But in the sense of, if I were to get negative comments, I think at the end of the day, you just can't take anything personally. Because 9 times out of 10, when people are being negative or saying something negative, it's not your issue anyway, it's theirs. So I think it's just a matter of deciding how you want to, deal with that. I mean, you're always going to run into that. I think it's just a matter of just building up a thick skin and, answering as diplomatically as you can and moving on, because, it's just wasted energy, I think, most of the time. So that personally is just how I deal in life, and I would, you know, do the same thing if I were to get negative comments, and that's what I would encourage or advise anybody else that maybe struggle with that to think about as well.
I mean, just to add to that, I think two things. First of all, I think the most important thing for me is, like, there's a little sick part of me that enjoys negative comments because I always want to just, like, bring out the snark and shoot them down. Usually because it's that person's issue and that is so transparent and naked and obvious. And then I actually start to feel bad, and I'm like, first of all, you never do that on a blog. Like, being snarky and obnoxious, especially with someone who's clearly coming from an unhappy place, comes across as so ungenerous and lousy. And it's only after you do get a little bit short-tempered with someone in your comment section that you realize how bad it looks. And you just realize, I'm just not going to do it. You know, even if that person is being super ignorant and hateful, they're coming from a place where clearly they are unhappy enough to go on a stranger's blog and be totally hateful. Like, that says a lot. So just don't even engage. And then, you know, on the flip side, I think part of the reason I love having an open comment section that often does sort of spiral out of my control is that, you know, every once in a while there is that critical comment on my blog that gets under my skin and annoys me, and I realize it's because they're right, and I did say something careless, or maybe I didn't think through something I said on my blog. Maybe I had sort of made a statement and didn't really think about the counter argument at all. And I can't tell you how many times comments that I was initially tempted to write off as being negative turned out to be, like, really valid criticisms that when I digested them for a night, like, totally illuminated something important for me. And I see my comment section as educating me a lot of the time. And it's also just, like, a great lesson in what can seem negative up front simply because it's critical is not always negative. Like, sometimes it's really enlightening, and you need to take heed and try to control your reaction and think before you react. Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to add something to that, you know, a lot of people who are writing vegan blogs, it's because they want to do activism or outreach. Like, it is an outreach tool, right? And when you get a negative comment on your blog, it means that you've challenged a perspective. You've asked someone to look at something differently, and the way that they respond to that might, in the first moment, be negative, but you have no idea, like you were saying, about yourself reflecting on that, how that individual is going to reflect that night, the next day, the next week. So never think that that is the last time they've thought about it, what you wrote either. That may just be the first time they thought about it and what they immediately reacted, but
and
later
I don't know,
changes.
Like, all the bloggers in the room, I'm sure you've had negative comments and then seen that person comment again a few months later, and it means they kept reading, and it's because exactly that happened. You know, like, maybe you made them uncomfortable, but they came back. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, in the community blogging panel, the folks at Super Vegan were talking about how there are blog posts that are kind of the most negative or stir up the most drama. Maybe they critique something that's vegan. That those are the posts that are by far the most popular, that get the most traffic.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. For sure. And so, you know, I think there's some urge maybe to sometimes let that drama happen just for engagement, right? Like, have you guys ever found anything like that? Like, found the ones that are most negative or the ones that just, like, won't go away, like won't archive because people continue to search on those terms or look those things up?
I moderate for a site that has a particular person that is very antagonistic towards people, and that it's always the same. There seems to be always the same, like 3 or something people, but it does definitely bring so much more people to that topic, and then hopefully, and if you look through click rates and things like that, if they go to that particular subject, and then a large majority of them do look at other things on the website as well. It just depends if you have the time to moderate that sort of thing. And some people can be really, really horrible to each other. And because the world that we live in now, everything, you don't meet people like, you know, not many bloggers are going to meet each other. Not many people are going to meet someone that they've written something about online. And you don't have that connection with people anymore, so people can say really horrible things to each other. So if you can moderate it well, I think that's good.
Is there a comment back there?
Yeah, hi. I haven't read this, but I know a lot of people have. And if you not only have a hard time writing positively and all that, there's a really good book called The 4 Agreements. And just to take things out of that, you don't even have to like agree with all of it. But there's a lot of things in that that can help you in put things in perspective and try to be more positive, like not taking things personally, you know, making agreements with yourself and being impeccable with your word. Just things like that that can really kind of get you thinking about ways that people could see you.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's also worth throwing out there, like, you do at the end of the day also need to like learn to rely on your own instincts. When like I get a comment on my blog that is just hateful and offensive, it gets deleted. And I like, and that's fine. Like, it's my blog, you know. I get to delete comments when they're, like, if they're just cruel and wrong, I'll forgive it. But there's a big difference between that and something that expresses either unhappiness, which should be allowed to just have its own space, or something that's critical, but completely legitimate and, like, expressed with respect. And I think that as a blogger, you just get very good at knowing the difference.
That's a good point. I mean, with my blog, I don't write. I'll write sometimes about like important vegan issues to me or my story. But I was writing for a website probably a few years ago, so I'd write something every week, and I got a lot more comments because it's always vegan centered. And a lot of the comments I got, you know, they weren't really nice, but they were asking questions. You know, like, wait a second, don't plants feel pain too? Like, that's it. Like, maybe you're being a jerk, but maybe you just think they do and you don't understand. So I can take 5 minutes to craft a response and be like, actually, you know, let me share this with you. So I think it's interesting to have those responses come out and to understand that even if somebody might come off as snarky, maybe they really do just want to know and they don't know how to ask, and it's something they've never thought of before.
And to add to that, Janice, if you have specific questions that people ask all the time, just have a Word file and you can just cut and paste them into those things as well. Yeah.
I was gonna say, or like, you know, sometimes people, maybe they are just being obnoxious, like maybe they're just trying to provoke you, but I think part of being an activist resides in setting a really, really, really wonderful example of how you deal with stuff like that, you know, like, be the bigger person and tolerate that provocative, silly comment with a question we've all answered 58 times with grace. And like, doesn't that say something great about veganism, right? Like, isn't that an important thing to do?
That's true. I mean, veganism is, a lot of it is about compassion, you know, so it's nice to treat everybody with compassion, even the snarky people sometimes.
And humans and animals too.
Yeah, that's right.
Important.
Yeah.
Do you, yeah, Chelsea?
Oh, I was just going to say one thing I also really like about comments, and I haven't necessarily experienced it with my own blog per se, but with articles and things like that, is on the other side when people are supportive or positive, there's usually like one really well written positive comment makes up for any negativity that you see in the comments, and even though you have to find inner strength, it helps build on that strength.
Chelsea, for anybody who went to Bob's Bread Mill on Friday, she developed some of the recipes for them. She's awesome.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Yeah. So my blog is more about animal rights, which is not always the most cheerful, upbeat thing on earth. No. So usually I do that after a couple of days of writing about some issue, I'll throw a recipe in there. But I don't think that's really an effective way to try to make the blog more positive. So how do you address difficult situations but still try and come away from it with people feeling better?
Yeah, we actually talked about that a little bit before this one. It's hard when you do address something that's so depressing and so sad to see. How do you do that?
I think it's I personally, I think tone. I think, you know, it may be something that, you know, you might have to think more about or develop, but I think that there's a way that you can write and dispel information, but the tone in which you're doing it can be read to where people can receive it and not automatically feel like you're placing judgment. And I think that's just, for me, it's probably just a skill, you know, something that you just have to just work at and kind of just be you, be authentic, put the information out there, say what you want to say, and then just develop different ways to say things, you know, because you don't always have to present information in the same way. You're still giving the same information, but play around with your tone and how you're saying it, not to where you're being phony or not true to who you are, what you want to say. But I think a lot of times that's, I think, the difficult thing about writing in general. That's why you don't text everything, because you don't know how it's being received. You can mean it one way, but it's received another. So I think with that, it's a skill that you just have to just work at and build, and then just kind of see what kind of responses you get, and then go from there. And then that goes back to the comments thing, where if you are writing something and maybe you get a comment that maybe isn't so nice or might, you know, come off a certain way, then that gives you another opportunity to then speak directly to that person if you see fit, to then, you know, be able to draw them in with the way in which you might respond or deal with that. So I think that it's really a matter of just kind of trying different things and working on your tone and how you write.
I mean, I think with like writing about animal rights, it's sort of, it's the same as just like living with awareness of these issues, like factory farming. Like the best you can do is try to awaken consciousness in other people, however you do that, you know. And so I think like, if you can manage to do it in a way, like if you get one person who seems more aware after a couple of those posts, like that has not been a negative few days for you on your blog, that has been a positive few days, and you kind of have to remind yourself of that. And also just for your own sake, so that you don't get down, remember that. And also like, I think just people sharing in consciousness is kind of what makes these very, very like dark topics worth talking about. You know, like I talk about eating disorders on my blog a lot, and I have gotten comments being like, this is getting really grim. Like, I just want fun recipes. And I'm like, well, you're going to get lots of them this week, but this is really necessary to talk about. And the fact that people can have a dialogue with each other, especially a lot of people who've been afraid to talk about this stuff openly, like, that's positive. There is nothing negative about that. So, you know, topically, yes, it's not happy. It's really dark. But it's the fact that people feel comfortable having a conversation that's what makes it positive.
And I would say for the animal rights stuff in particular, you could share a video, for example, like, you know, the Mercy for Animals video. You could share that and say, this is what Mercy for Animals are doing. If you want to get involved with them, and these are some ways you can volunteer to help out, or these are the sanctuaries that actually rescue these pigs from these slaughterhouses, or give people ways that they can help, because it's, you know, we need to get some of this information out to people, but we also need to show people how they can help once you've given them that information. So that I would include that in the whole blog, like every aspect of that I would include. And you could, anything like that.
You're not powerless. Yeah, that's brilliant.
You're not powerless, definitely.
I was going to say the same thing as Elsie. I read, because I've been vegan for so long, and I've read so many terrible things, and the ones that are just all about the terrible, I avoid them. But the ones who say something terrible and then say, here's how you can make a difference, or here, let's together make a difference, then you're like, okay, like let's try and like take that anger and turn it into something. Or even the blogs that maybe don't know what to do. You're like, oh my God, all of this tragedy, what can I do? Sometimes just asking the question, like, what should we do? What can we do together? And like getting people engaged that way, so that it just doesn't end with like,
the world is bad.
As much as sometimes you might feel that way, you have to be like, okay, then what?
And cute little puppy videos or animal videos or rescue videos, like, you know,
Or
every Friday
videos.
you could have a nice, every Friday you put a blog about a sanctuary or a little video or something like that, and the rest of the week you really hard-hitting information, hard-hitting videos, interviews with people that rescue these animals and things like that. And every Friday people know, oh, that's a great way to end the weekend. I'm going to get this lovely video, or, you know, there's this great video called Why Must We Eat the Animals, this music video. Has anyone heard that? It's just really cool and always makes me feel so happy. So, you know, things like that. And or even like, I don't know if you guys are good at putting together slideshows or anything like that, but you could put together a little slideshow. I've got a slideshow of all these animal friends of mine and my friends and that makes me feel happy. So, you know, just think about things that make you happy and share them with your audience.
That's good. What's the name of your blog?
It's goingvegan.net. It's going-vegan.net.
Cool. Any other questions?
I know personally I hate reading blogs where people are angry all the time.
Yep.
And I think that yesterday I read a tweet from an animal activist, and she said, I hate people. And I was like, I don't ever want to read another one of her tweets. You know, and she had a lot of followers, and I thought, you know, that's the wrong place to come from.
It's just a way of expressing themselves too, because I know a lot of vegans that are very misanthropic, and you know, some hide it better than others. you know, and it's just sometimes a way to vent, and you know, Twitter's become just what everyone does all the time, and so, and I think people don't realize the power of words as well. Like I'm very aware of what my, you know, what happens if you share something, because you know, words can be powerful and inspire people. It can also be really hurtful. So I'm very, very aware of that, and I don't think a lot of people are.
And I was just going to say, I mean, Twitter's a funny place. You don't really want to judge on a tweet because you could have also just seen something really horrific, and at that moment thought, I hate people because they just strangled a dog or something. I mean, I think for a lot of us on the vegan journey, we're startled by so much truth that we didn't know about, and so while we may have abused animals at some point in our life by eating them, now we're learning about what people are. I mean, I think that we have to be gentle with one another too.
Yeah, I will say, like, there are very few, I don't think there are any blog posts I would ever modify or take back, but I've sent tweets I didn't want to, like, where, like, I've thought about it later and been like, that wasn't brilliant, you know, like, I think, I agree, like, especially if you're someone with a big following, you have a responsibility to not be quite that negative. I totally agree, like, I think that hurts the team in a really big way, but I'll also say, like, Twitter's a really, really easy place to vent thoughtlessly and forget that people are watching, you know? So.
I think that maybe does play into though, I mean, other than positivism and blogging positivism, I'll get it before the end of the class. On Twitter, you know, like everything you do say, whether it is 140 characters or whether you're writing a book, it does reflect on you in some way, and it is something that you should consider when you are sending out a tweet. You know, people are reading that, even if you're not getting comments on it because it's not a blog post. So I think it's a really good point that when you do feel really angry like that, do consider it maybe for a second.
Yeah. Think before you tweet. You know,
I it really doesn't work. You can't delete the tweet. It's like trying to like retract an email in Outlook. It just doesn't work.
Because you can delete it, but it doesn't delete from
It doesn't do anything because
like
anyone who saw it
already
saw it. It is on the
think before you tweet. Think before you tweet.
And I know people that actually copy and paste certain tweets or Facebook comments that people make that can be used against them later on.
Yeah, you
so
got it.
just be really careful.
Really?
Facebook is, oh yeah.
Who would do that?
Well, legal issues mostly, but yeah, you have to be really careful. People don't understand it. It's just like, if you wouldn't say something to someone face to face, don't say it online. I think that's pretty simple.
I think that's an interesting one too. The internet's pretty anonymous. Yeah. I mean, it's so much easier to be like, oh my gosh, you look so bad. I hate tempeh. I love tofu. And you're like, that's a really nice one, right? But it is like you need to realize that just because it's anonymous doesn't mean that it's not a real person on the other end. And I think sometimes it's really easy to forget online.
People are listening.
No, I think that's a really good point. What Leigh just said about just, you know, thinking about what you're doing is so huge because, you know, you just don't know and you can't take anything back. And I think being on the internet, and being on blogs, it's easy to be a certain way because you don't think that there's really repercussions. You know, like you said, I mean, and so I think if you're not going to say something to somebody's face, then yeah, you shouldn't. You know, I think that's a really, really good point because it allows you to kind of be a coward in a way. You know what I'm saying? Because you're still behind your computer, but you just never know, you know, who you're going to run into in the elevator.
And especially like for this room, because it's not just about how people perceive us. Quite frankly, I really don't care what anyone thinks of me, Jenna Hampshire. But if you're writing about animals, I think in some ways it's a different set of responsibilities too because it's reflecting on a community, at least if you're someone who presents yourself as being part of this community and speaking for the community in any way. If you don't, that's fine. Then it's, you know, then you don't have to like think about that. But if you do sort of align yourself with the vegan community, I do think you're reflecting on more than just you. And so you do have responsibilities. So while, you know, again, like while there are plenty of days where I would just love to be obnoxious, like I'm just not going to because it's not just about me.
I have a question. I don't know if any of you guys do reviews on your sites, but do you do negative reviews of vegan products or
Good question. I think it kind of goes back to what Jenna was saying about negative versus constructive, you know? And you can be like, this product sucks so bad, I hate it, or you can say, you can say it in a constructive way.
Here's how it could have been better.
Yeah, you were, yeah.
Well, I'll give you an example of one I did recently. There's a new raw food restaurant that opened up at the Sunshine Coast, so just north of where I live in Queensland in Australia. And it was advertised as raw and vegan. And so I went in there and we had, you know, just lunch and everything, and a friend who was with me was actually friends of the owner. And they had honey and they had bee pollen, and I have a big issue with anything that's classed as vegan and they're still having honey. And they also had milk in there, like hot chocolate mix or something, and they still, because we were going to have it mix, like a hot chocolate mix.
It's weird in and of itself.
But there was an organic place just down the road that they could have got a specific brand for anyway. But anyway, that was one issue. But I just went to the person and I just said, I'd just like you to know that you're going to have a few issues from vegans with classifying this restaurant as vegan when you're selling honey and you're selling bee pollen, because that's not actually vegan. And she actually raises the bees herself, so she's attached to the bees, so there was that issue as well. And I don't think she will budge on that at all, no matter what happens. And then I ended up blogging, what I said in my blog about it was they're calling themselves vegan and raw, but they're not 100% of either. Just keep that in mind when you go there and you won't be disappointed. And then she actually posted that on her Facebook page, and she got a lot of comments in relation to it not being vegan, because a lot of my vegan friends were promoting this place because it was vegan, and it's not. And so that was raised a lot, and she spoke a lot with all these people. So I don't necessarily think she's going to move from the honey thing, because she has bees that are looked after. But at least the milk is out.
I think for me personally, I would be willing to bet a good amount of people that either follow me on Twitter or follow my blog are not vegan, and most of my friends are not. So I feel a larger responsibility personally to be very honest as I can, even if it is vegan, because the last thing I want is for them to try something vegan and be completely turned off. So I feel a greater responsibility to be as upfront as I can. And then somebody said in one of the other panels I was in, I might like something somebody else may not, so what people like is going to vary from person to person as well. But I think reviews that I have done, if I've done reviews of certain products, a lot of them that I've done so far I just have happened to like. But if I'm just trying something and I'm talking about it, I try to do it more constructively, because I think that it's important. Like I said, I wouldn't want somebody that wasn't vegan to be like, okay, I'll try, and then go get it and be like, okay, that's why I'm not, because some people are that way about it. And because that's a lot of who I'm around, I'm very sensitive to that. So I think it just really depends on where you are with that. But I think somebody else had said, nobody benefits from veganism, does not benefit from bad vegan food or bad vegan products. So I think being constructive is probably the best way.
It's interesting when, I write Yelp reviews, and my roommate writes Yelp reviews, and we're both a vegan, and all my Yelp reviews are 5 stars and 4 stars, and I'm like, I love this place, the food is kind of mediocre, but everybody was so nice, and I love it. And then my roommate is like, 1 star, they didn't have the sauce I asked for, and the cashew sauce was this. And it's funny, because I think it takes both types. It takes everybody, because when you do read blogs, and you do read reviews, and you do read everything, there's so many different kinds of people that there's going to be people really inspired by however you are. So whether or not you're really positive, or whether or not you're really real or really opinionated, or whatever, there's going to be people that will respond to that. And that's why I think it's great there's different kinds of vegan activists, like there's a whole spectrum of vegan activists. And I think it's great. I think whatever it takes to get people interested and get people pulled in is a really good way to go, and really inspires all sorts of different people.
I'm like in the middle of that debate too. Like, I think on the one hand, especially with restaurants, I never want to be ungenerous to a vegan restaurant, because I'm just glad they're there. But then on the other hand, I'm like, yeah, but because they're there, they sort of the onus is on them to show people how delicious vegan food is. And most vegans are really big foodies, and we kind of know when something could taste better. So I think it's really, it's about being like very constructive in the way you talk about things. Like, I'm never going to say something is great if it's not, because I don't want people to go and get the wrong idea about it when I know that there are a million vegan restaurants that are amazing and people could go and have a fantastic meal instead. But at the same time, you know, you always want to acknowledge that you appreciate that these things are there, whether it's like a, you know, vegan sausage or a restaurant. Like, you always want to acknowledge it's great that this is out there. Maybe it's not for me, maybe I don't even think it's not great, but it's a step, and with this, and this, it could be even better.
And Anika and I were speaking about this yesterday, that if you have an issue with a restaurant or a person, speak to them first about it, send them a personal email, and try to work it out between them. And if you don't, hopefully you can get to some sort of arrangement from that, and they can fix, something, one of your staff wasn't that friendly. I've done it before with one of a friend that owns a vegetarian place in Brisbane. I just said, your staff member has some real customer service issues, and I think you need to have a look at that. And because we were friends, I guess it was a bit of a different way that I could go up to her and say that, but you could email that to someone as well. And and a lot of people want feedback too, because this is their business, this is their name, that's their money online. So I think anything you can give, constructive criticism is always
right. Don't be
good.
passive and be like, oh my
so
gosh,
important.
this place sucks. I'm gonna go home and write, in my blog or on a review, rather than being like, hey, just so you know.
And it comes back, like, this happened to a blogger friend of mine recently. She really was hard on a restaurant and like kind of snarky about it, and the owners emailed her and were really upset, and it turned into a whole big thing. And their point was just like, you forget this is our livelihood. We're a new restaurant. We don't have much press. When one vegan blogger comes and talks about it, that's pretty much all that's out there at this point. And even if you were offended by how awful your food was, like, you can always choose to talk to them first so that you don't get into this kind of back and forth with them, and maybe find a way to talk about it.
Well, and I took a food writing class earlier in the year, and food critics don't announce that they're there, that they're writing a review, and they usually go 3 or 4 times. And so a pretty fair review can come out of that. And we're bloggers, and we go and we have one experience, and we write about it, and it's going to go around, so it's just kind of like sometimes to kind of put that food critic hat on when you're reviewing a restaurant, and just kind of professionalize it a little bit and think about, or say it's my first time and it could have been an off night or whatever.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Especially with new restaurants. Yeah, that's really smart.
Especially when you're saying that new place just opened. There's, one I just did a review with just recently. They don't have a website. They don't even. I was getting restaurant reservations to my email for this place, and people. I think I'm meant to open a restaurant or something. The amount of emails I get, so you have to be really careful, because I think still, if you look for this place, my blog's like the first thing there. So you don't want a new vegetarian or vegan place that doesn't have an online presence whatsoever, because just because I know about online presence and the majority of us here do, doesn't mean everyone does. And your blog can be the first thing on Google searches, and it's a negative thing, and that's not very beneficial for the vegan movement, I don't think. And also, this brings me to forums as well. A forum in particular that is quite negative. They have a lot of a few businesses that's going to be the first Google search is this forum, and they're saying negative things about a vegan business instead of going to the owner, instead of going to whoever runs the website, and I don't think that helps.
Sure. Well, Jenna had lunch today, and where she was at, well, you can tell that story. You just told it to me.
Well, no, I went to Prasad for lunch, and having just been on a nutrition panel where I was talking about how great oil is, like, my wrap was super oily to the point where I was like a little bit turned off, and I did mention it to the guy behind the counter, but I also realized, like, it had been pre-wrapped, it had probably been there for a couple of hours. There's no way I'm going to go on my blog and lambast that restaurant, which basically has a fantastic menu, really good juices, like really great salad dressings, and is clearly doing a good thing. I'm just going to mention
give businesses
a little oily for me.
Time to fix it.
Totally, give them time to fix it. I did mention it, and I was super nice about it. And like, who knows? It could have just been that one wrap too. It could have been the way they made the pesto that day.
Maybe there was a new cook.
Yeah, totally. So I think that's super important. Like always just mention, if there was one part of your experience that was good, throw that out there first. And then, you know, be honest about what didn't work.
We've got probably about 10 minutes left. Is there any other questions or comments you guys have been thinking of throughout?
Do you ever get criticized for being positive and not being, I don't know.
Not being like realist, like a realist.
Yeah, like, well, or you know, maybe just like maybe you're not yourself if you're positive all the time, or maybe it's just kind of all Pollyanna veganism when really there's like a lot of, you know, terrible things happening. Like, do you guys ever get criticism that way?
I get nice ones. Like I get a lot of like, oh, Jenna, it's okay to feel that way. Like I think a lot of the times people realize I'm talking myself into feeling better, which I totally am. I'm talking myself into feeling better. Like on a day when I had a horrible midterm, I'm convincing myself. And I have a lot of readers who are like, my readers at this point know me well enough and are like kind and generous enough to give me leeway to be like, if you're having a terrible day, that's fine. So I'm actually like really lucky in that I have an audience that's clearly realistic and like human enough to allow me to be in a bad mood. And I think that that's like something I'm extremely grateful for. I've never had people be like, I think that you're putting on a front. I'm sure that there are readers who feel that way about certain bloggers, but I've never come across it.
Yeah, I think for me, again, like I said, a lot of people that I'm around are not vegan. So I think for me, I don't ever for me, I get more of people, especially like non-vegan people around me, appreciate me being positive because they may have been exposed to vegans where they feel judged or they feel like, you know, you're shoving it down their throat. And so I get a lot of more appreciation of the fact that it's an introduction rather than this is the way you gotta be, or you know what I mean? Like that's just not my way anyway. That's just not how I approach veganism, especially from an outreach standpoint. That I'm the other way. You know, I'm much more the person to invite you to come to a restaurant and we'll sit down and we'll talk. You know what I mean? So that's just how I operate. Or like if people ask questions, whatever. So I think I get more people that appreciate that, the positive spin on it, to where they feel more open and safe about trying something or asking questions about it.
I don't necessarily get comments about being too positive or anything like that, but I get different emails or different comments on other forums about certain things I support, it takes a while, like to get into the habit. But you know, the people that know me know what I like, and the other people that don't, they don't really matter. Like people that make judgments and they don't know me, it really doesn't mean anything to me. So yeah, if you're new and you're just starting, just try and keep that in mind. And a close friend of mine said to me that there's people that do things and there's people that complain about people that do things. And whenever I'm a bit down about certain things, I just remember what he said, and that really helps. So I know what side I'm on, you know.
As a blogger, I think it's so important to also realize, like, sometimes the reader's just not that into you. And, like, you know, like, sometimes your sensibility, whatever that is, whether it's because you're super upbeat and happy and they're kind of in a dark place and want to share with others who are in dark places, or because you're a little bit more of a realist than they would like and they would rather your content be a little bit more upbeat, like, that's fine, because they can find other blogs that aren't you. And, like, it's so important to be at peace with that. Like, to realize, yeah, like, of course, if you're doing something to really alienate your readers who are normally receptive, like, maybe that's time to take stock and think about what kind of mood you've been in. But, like, basically, if you know your own voice, and people can definitely be okay with it, or they can leave it behind, and that's fine. There will be other readers to whom your voice is really appealing, and that's part of being, like, a positive blogger. It's also not getting bogged down in how you're perceived. It's just, like, a fact.
Just out of curiosity, unless somebody else has a more valid or important question, do any of you worry about your safety with some of these people that are negative or have been negative in the past? Do you take any certain steps to, like, ensure that you're not having crazy people?
I think it's a really interesting question. It's actually a class called Reality, Identity, and Blogging that is going to address some of those issues of, about how, you know, you put a lot of your life out there, especially if you're like a really frequent blogger or you're a really open blogger. I think that's a really interesting question. I don't worry about it. Just because I don't know. I have faith in people. I don't know. Because I'm positive. I'm like, everybody, if I'm nice to everybody, they'll be nice to me. So no, I don't really worry about it. I have friends who do, and they don't let their names get anywhere, and they don't say anything on Twitter that identifies where they are. And they don't, they don't use any of that.
I've only stopped short of putting like a photo of my front door on my blog. That was like the only thing I won't do. Otherwise, I just kind of assume no one cares enough to do anything bad, which is like,
hopefully that's the case.
Possibly naive, possibly right. I don't know, but it's an interesting question.
I'm a bit more conscious of security culture, to be honest. I just think a lot of people are sharing a bit too much online. I don't put on Facebook, for example. Don't put your birth date. Don't put like your status, like your relationship status. Don't, those where you can tag people into where you're going. If you live on your own and people know that you're not going to be at your home and they know where you live, they can easily go to your place or things like that. Right. And just also, if you're doing undercover stuff or not necessarily legal stuff, your phone can be tracked wherever it is. So take the battery out. There's lots of things people have to be aware of, I think, and a lot of people aren't.
Like it seems really popular I'm at such and such on Twitter. I just know that I wouldn't do that. I don't feel that I'm super paranoid, but I don't have a big support system.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Physically.
Also, I do know, like, with photos, geotags can be a problem. Like, people can figure out exactly where you are from photos. So you do want to phone photos. So you want to try to not have geotags on your photos. That's like, I think that's a level of total reasonableness, especially. Again, if you do live alone or, even if you don't, for the sake of people who live with you.
Yeah, and that's again not being impulsive. Like we said, think about what you do before you do it. Don't just be in the moment and say something, think about it. And if you, feel doubt about it, like my mom always says, when in doubt, do without. So it's just like, give yourself time to really think about it.
Yeah, and keep in mind the generations that are coming up now, they haven't known anything other than this. Like this is their world, and they're sharing everything. And if you've got a 16-year-old girl sharing, their self in a bikini getting smashed at whatever party, and then they try and get a job in a few years' time. Some of that stuff is always going to be on the internet, and people have to be really aware. Just think about what you're trying to promote, and think about what you'd like your father, your best friend, your sister, your partner to see, and just try
your boss.
And your boss, exactly.
Your boss. Yeah. The person interviewing you from that school.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just keep it all in mind, and that's not to freak everyone out. Oh my God, but just really keep it in mind, because a lot of people don't think about it.
Yeah,
it's a good question.
Anybody else?
Anyone? If there's nothing else. But do we not want to use the
go.
time?
No,
We're like lucky then, but since I'm here, Any quick fire tips? I know probably covered this somewhat. Quick fire tips for dealing with people who are judgmental to the vegan lifestyle.
Ooh,
this is your strategy is just it doesn't bother you. So that would be one strategy. Just don't worry about it. And are there any more like quick comments on that?
Again, I just think, don't take it personal. I know I keep saying that, but I just think it's true. Especially with that, there's nothing to do with that, because most of the time when people are being judgmental about you being vegan, at least what I felt is really them being judgmental of themselves.
Yeah,
because
you're choosing to not do something they do.
Exactly. So you can't really do anything with that. I think the only thing you can do is try to, be generous about what it is that you're doing, or introduce them, or say, hey, do you want to try a piece of my cake? Just anything to kind of just diffuse that and not make it to where you're alienating people, because you do want to, at least I know personally, I want to introduce people to it. So, but I think as far as people being judgmental, I'm now at the point where it doesn't bother me, because it's just kind of par for the course, unfortunately, and I think you just have to adopt your own way to really deal with that, and you just can't carry it with you.
I think having a conversation with people is super important. Like, I think a lot of the time the impulse is to be like, well, if you're going to be critical of my lifestyle, I am going to assume that you are ignorant and awful and just disengage with you because you're pissing me off. I think you can't do that. I think that looks extremely insecure, and it is pretty insecure actually. So like, I think it's super important. As long as if someone's being downright awful and cruel to you, yeah, you can pretty much just say it's not me, it's them, and move on. But like, I think if someone's even trying to have a conversation with you, answer back, offer facts, be calm, be positive, look like you enjoy your lifestyle, because you do.
Lead by example.
Lead by example,
Yeah.
and also engage with people. Don't make people feel like they are not worthy of you answering their questions. Like, you have a story like this, right? Where you had like a conversation recently.
I was out with some people, and I work in a restaurant. It's not a vegan restaurant. I was out with people who aren't vegan. I'm the only vegan they know, and so I'm like that sole person, and they can ask me questions, and I don't take that as being like, oh God, I've never heard that one before. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll say that's a good question, or I'll be like, I haven't heard that before. But then I'll have a discussion with them. I'll be like, I do get this a lot, but this is my answer to you, and I don't speak for all vegans, I speak for me, but this is where I'm coming from. And they're like, oh, okay, all right, that makes sense. I think I could probably count on like one finger how many times somebody's walked away being like, oh God, that sucked, or like, oh, I don't understand where she's coming from, or had a negative impact from the discussion. I think part of it is understanding, like I said at the beginning, that everybody's just trying to do the best they can. Sometimes it doesn't work with us. We can understand when that happens, and that we should try and let our egos go. And if somebody is coming from that place of judgmental, don't go back right away with negative. Be like, okay, let's discuss and let's move on.
And sometimes sleep on it too. If you don't know how to respond to something, just sleep on it.
Absolutely. If you get hot-tempered, sleep on it.
Yeah.
Examine yourself.
Definitely.
Chelsea?
Well, also, use the vegan blogging community for support. Like, if you have something negative happen, not just use it for complaining, but to get perspective. Because a lot of times when we get frustrated because of a comment or something like that, we kind of lose perspective and forget about things like, where they're coming from and stuff like that. So being able to bounce back off someone, either a friend nearby or in the community online, where you can get that support and get those reminders are really important. And obviously there's a big one, so take advantage of it.
And we all probably get a lot of the same questions and conversations, so like, you can always ask people for advice.
And you see how other people respond to things, and like I said, do the word thing and just copy and paste what people say and link to things as well. People want information. So
And Colleen Patrick Goudreau is doing a talk right after this one about seeds of compassion, so that might be a good one to go to if you're interested in that, of how to deal effectively with people. All right. Thank you guys for coming.